Hi, I'm Jennifer, here with another Machine Minute brought to you by Baby Lock and the Crescendo machine. Save yourself some time if you've designed a quilt that you want to hang on the wall by placing your hanging sleeve on at the same time you add the binding to your quilt. Choose the edge where you want the hanging sleeve to be. If their quilt isn't directional, you might consider putting them on opposite edges so that you can rotate the quilt for display and lessen the pull on it from being a hanging object. But a hanging sleeve, it's really up to you how far from the edge you want your sleeve to go, depending on what you're going to hang it from. And the width of your strip that you cut is dependent on what kind of rod you'll have hanging through it. A curtain rod you could obviously get by with a much smaller sleeve, or if you've got a quilt hanger that has a board or something that goes through here, you might want a little more space. But let me show you how to add it to your quilt. Now I've chosen the top edge and I've gotten my binding on around the corner at the top edge. I've prepared my hanging sleeve by cutting a double width fabric just like when you make binding, and I've turned my ends in because I don't want the raw edge to show. Not that anyone will see it, but I like to finish it. Some people will even stitch opening this up to finish the edge further. I'm not that worried about it. Your hanging sleeve goes against the back side of your quilt with the raw edges aligned with the top edge of your quilt. Now I've placed a pin at the center of my sleeve so that I'll know that it matches up and is centered perfectly. So I'm going to place that pin through all the layers there, and then I may add a couple more pins just to make sure that nothing slides out of the way while I'm doing my binding. And I'll get that situated, and then I'm ready. My binding, just like usual, is going to go along the top edge. And again, I may add one additional pin along this edge just to hold things in place while I sew. So I'm going to get it situated under the needle here, lower my presser foot and my needle, and begin sewing. And I'm just using the same 1/4 inch seam that I was using before to sew my binding on, but all the edges are aligned. I'll continue sewing across the entire quilt top, and then when I get ready to turn my binding, I'll show you what happens next. So once you've completed sewing on your binding all the way around the quilt, what you've got is your binding on the front side and your sleeve on the back. The raw edge is caught, so you have a finished edge here. Now you don't want to slide your rod through the double fabric. You want to slide it behind it. So when you finish the quilt, as always, you'll turn your binding to the back and stitch it in place. And then you'll want to pin along this back edge where your sleeve is not yet stitched down. And when I pin mine down, I just try to make sure that I leave a little bit of gap. I don't pull it so tight down so that when I get ready to slide my hanging rod through here, it has a little bit of give. If you pull it too taut when you pin it along this edge, when you hang your quilt, you'll see a bump on the front side. So giving it that little bit of slack before you pin along the whole edge and hand tack it in place will give you just enough leeway that you'll have a perfect hanging sleeve on your quilt every time.